So my name is Paul Seedar, and I joined Real Dad because someone gave me the information, and I was really hesitant to check it out. But I'm very glad I did. I'm glad I did because this is the group that, as a black man, you need, but you don't know you need, but you do know you need it. And for me, I was in that same category. I knew I needed something where I could confide in someone, where I could talk to people. And again, like most of us, I have friends that I talk to, co-workers, associates, etc. But there's something about a place where you can find black men who are fathers, who are going through the same ups and downs and struggles that you're going through. And sometimes it may not even be the same struggles and the same ups and downs, but they can offer insight and a different perspective and a different vantage point that you haven't considered. For me, that's exactly what I needed.
For them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down. Cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
Welcome to another episode of Dad is Not a Noun. My name is Ishmael, changing the narrative for men of color fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. And today I have a special guest with me. He's a father, husband first, and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I'm honored to have him on. Alfred Sloan, how you doing?
Doing well, Ishmael. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I want to check it out. So the entrepreneurial side is mainly my kids' business. So this is LAS Custom Style. So we're on all platforms. IG. My wife's name is Deshawn. She goes by Shawnee Talks Lifestyle. So if you want to check on her platform as well, look forward to connecting with you each.
And all those links will be in the description in the description. One of the main questions I ask all my guests, because I'm all about mental health, especially for
Yeah.
men of color. How's your heart?
Man, my heart, honestly, my right now with everything that's going on, on a more global platform, there's an aspect of me that has more of a grievous place that it wouldn't have had, 2 weeks ago. But again, it's not directed towards any particular group of people. It's the fact that there are children that are out there that are, in very destitute situation as a result of, you know, conflict that could have been avoided, right? And so as a father, you never want to see your children or any of the kids that you potentially have the influence and be able to work with in a situation like that where you see, I appreciate the posts and different things that you've been putting out on it. But where you see children that are in very dire situations like that, and if you have the ability to help correct it, you want to try to do that. So aside from that, I mean, personally, I'm in a very good mental space. I've always advocated very heavily for the different work that we can do as African American men, and not only our community, but in what I like to call the Black Wall Street mindset, right? To be able to implement that, and those are kind of the things that the not the struggle. I like to choose my words carefully. The amount of energy that you have to put into trying to initiate something like that to be able to cause change in different demographics is a very big task. But when you do it systemically, it's something that can really be, it can outlive you. And I think that's the part that many of us are trying to do now. So as a man, I'm good as a father, as I said about that situation. But other than that, my kids are well, my wife's well, family's well, parents are well. So, you know. How about
Thank
you?
you for
How
sharing.
how's your mental health currently?
My heart is good, man. I'm just blessed to have a platform where I can create something for dads like yourself. And the one thing I always say is, I'm I appreciate that I get to do this. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so that's the most important thing to me, is
yeah,
that this platform is a place where fathers like yourself can go to. So there's not a lot of places that fathers can go to. Don't get me wrong, there are places, but other podcasts, they're looking for like the big names. But when
yeah,
you talk about dads that's doing ordinary, extraordinary things, they
yeah,
really have a platform to go to. And I want this to be the platform for dads to go to. But
Definitely.
enough about me, because it's about you. I love that you talked about having that Wall Street mindset.
Yeah.
Take me to that journey of how you got to that mindset.
Ooh, man, this is gonna be. I'm gonna shrink it down a little bit. So, I went to college in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had the privilege of meeting a survivor of Black Wall Street massacre. So, for those who don't know, in 1921, basically over Memorial Day weekend, there was a major massacre that happened in Tulsa that affected 40 square blocks, and it was hidden from our history books. It was hidden even in the local community for almost 80 years until the investigative body that was generated as a result of some of the internal work that was being done to find these people that were kind of scattered out, and try to reclaim some of the land that was taken and the businesses that were looted, and try to see if there's a way to start reclaiming some of the insurance claims that never were paid out. And by meeting, this is me at 18 years old. You know what I mean? I think it was 18. Yeah, I was 18 at the time. And I met this gentleman at the church that I actually attended, and he happened to be willing to take myself, my parents out, and my siblings out, and I was sitting directly across from him. And he started to tell me, he was like, yeah, and he had this medal on his chest, and I'm like, did you used to run track or something? Like, what's that for? He's like, oh, I'm a survivor of the they used to call it the race riot. He said, I'm a survivor of the Tulsa race riot. And I was like, the what? He's like, you ever heard of Black Wall Street? I was like, oh yeah. As a concept, yeah, I know about Black Wall Street. He's like, well, no, we had it here. And I'm like, word, explain. So he starts telling me for about an hour and a half. He's explaining to me about the history of how everything came to be. What happened when he ended up leaving after the massacre happened, and the people that had sought him out, and the interviews that he's done over the years, and people he got connected with. And so from there, I said, you know what? I said one of the things that really resonated with me was that Black Wall Street was designed as a prototype. It wasn't designed just to only be in Tulsa, right? It was designed as a platform that you could then take and move. And if you wanted to make it into, Atlanta or Charlotte or Philly or New York or any other places that you wanted to do, Chicago, you had the ability to do that, set up the infrastructure, build out the businesses, recruit the people, and we would own a lot more land than what we currently own. And so the challenge I have as a dad, right, is not just educating my kids on the history, because there's a lot of stuff that was hidden for that long period of time, but also to make sure that they have exposure to some of the people that, one, are either family members of people that survived it, two, that they also have the ability to go down and actually visit Black Wall Street, which they've been there. Three, that they're tied in with the community, and my wife and I have done a very good job working with different groups that are down there. And then four, that we work with them to be able to implement things that can help shape the narrative around Black Wall Street that we can actually do here. So I love the image that you put up here. This is my family with Justin Richburg. Justin is a great artist, amazing guy. I hit him up about this task I wanted to do, and it really was basically around the time when Black Panther, the movie, the first one, came out. And just I always liked this artwork. I love this style, and I said, hey, look, I want you to do an art piece that symbolizes my family, but in Wakanda. And I want you to do it in your style. And I said, sending the pictures and everything. I said, I just really want, on the throne, there's Wakandan font, and it says a father's love in Wakandan font. And so one of the things that I've always done with my children, with my wife, is to try to make sure that anything we do is pushing people back to understand not only what Black Wall Street was, but the fact that it was a family thing. It wasn't just like we had a bunch of single entrepreneurs that decided to build this thing. It was a family environment, and everybody was designed to prosper. If it wasn't for the events of those 3 days and the subsequent, legal challenges and other preventative measures, it would be a very different place in Tulsa than what it is right now. And not that it's a bad place, but the ownership level at that 40 square blocks, we're down to a block and a half now, right? And even that block and a half is not really owned by us. It's more managed and operated with people that look like us. And that's the part that I think we can change moving forward. But we got to do it as family, because if not, when I die, if my kids don't take up the mantle, it is what it is. Somebody gonna come, they're gonna offer them the right amount of money, off to the next thing.
No, facts, facts. And I think the most important thing about what happened with Black Wall Street, because of naming it a riot,
Yeah.
the can collect insurance on it.
Yep. Yep.
They were
There
held
was no insurance
liable.
plan. Yep.
But also talk about the motorcycle culture.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So we so I'm from Philly originally, so I've lived a couple different places because I'm a military kid, but I was born in Philly. I wasn't raised there, but I got to be able to spend a lot of my time there with as I got older in my adulthood. And one of the things that's really heavy is bike culture here. And so one of the things that transcends any, any demographic is when you have something that's a cultural phenom. So like as I had this on Do It for the Culture, as something that's culturally appropriate, you have other groups of people that come from different forms of businesses, from lawyers, doctors. You got young, you got old, and so this was one of the things I started using to really help get my kids excited about not only STEM related things, but also about ways to be able to produce revenue. And so the LAS Customs brand was birthed as it's actually, it stands for my three children. It's their initials. It was birthed out of that. And it was like, we wanted to start with the motorcycle culture. First vehicles we bought were little bikes for our kids to ride, right? Next vehicles we got into was the bigger things. And then we started customizing and, doing LEDs and electronics and all of these other pieces that spun out of that. But it started originally with the bike culture. And we're also a part of the Black Wall Street Motorcycle Rally. So we work a lot with that team down there and have been really excited to help bring some of the events back to Tulsa. And it's next year, I think it's on the 11th and 12th or 12th and 13th. It's typically like that Friday through Sunday, like that type of time. And they just posted the information for next year's event. So if y'all want to check them out, it's BWSE Rally on IG.
Definitely, and that link will be in the description. As a person that loves STEM, just talk about your passion for STEM.
Ooh, so I'm a black scientist by actual background. I'm one of the guys that works and I'll give it in kind of in general. I've had the privilege for about 15 years working with different groups that are trying to create novel therapeutics. So without going into all the particulars of that and taking up too much time on that side, I noticed that there's a large portion of us that don't really get to see the side of science that is able to help bring us larger amount of revenue. So we're not in, the places where the people are trying to create clinical trials, right? I've worked with HBCUs hand over feet. And, one of the things that I constantly see is a lot of defunding of their educational programs around STEM, right? They're constantly having to go and file for, try to find, venture capitalists or other groups that will donate resources. And I said, you know what? I don't have to do that with my kids. I make enough money that I can put some aside and I can pull together, even if it's buying used electronics, just to let them practice on, even if it's getting, used cars and showing them how to do it. So the images you have up is actually my oldest daughter when she was about 2, maybe 3 years old, working with me. And the first image is us putting in LEDs, and we're working on a Camaro. So this is a Bumblebee car. And she's helping me run the wires to be able to actually have the headlights on the Bumblebee car. This was a yellow Camaro. And then the second image is us. I had just cut in for the stereo system. So we were going to put in I think for that one, what did we do? We just did a regular, like a CD player in that one rather than a touchscreen. They do have some other cars that got touchscreen. And then I added 6.5-inch, I think they were Kenwoods they were Kenwoods because Alpines was next generation. And we ran all of that, set it all up. And then I got videos on top of videos of her driving that thing around. So she's able to participate in the fruit of her labor, but also she gets to see the difference in how we're able to create revenue from that.
And I love this because it teaches your kids problem solving skills, which I think is
100%.
one of the things that's lacking in children today is that component. Just talk about that.
Yeah, critical thinking with children, man, is the more you can make it exciting, right? The critical thinking kind of, it just automatically kicks in. It's like, well, hold on, but Dad said if I do it this way, but if I don't do it that way, what's the outcome of that? Oh, interesting. So if I ever see this again, now I know here's the reason why this happened, right? But in the interim, they're not knowing what the outcome of this is because she's never seen what LEDs are. She just knows she comes in the house, you hit the light switch, the light comes on. Right. She doesn't know anything about whether or not there's an interruption in the switch or any of that stuff. She doesn't know where the power comes from. She doesn't know any of that. She just knows I turn this thing on, the light's going to come on. So I figured this was a way that we could be able to start modifying and showing, different colors. I taught them how to run wires, and that's how they learn their colors. When you're doing a stereo, you have positive, negative, and then you have different colors that go to each, in this case, speaker, right? Versus the auxiliary power and the negative. And so we just started working on that. And this is all self-taught. This isn't anything I went to school for. I just sat down one day and was like, I want to build my daughter a custom ride. And I was like, let me figure out how to do this. And I literally sat there. The first vehicle I did for her was a Escalade. I bought after the motorcycle, I bought an Escalade, the motorcycle, and like a Dodge Charger. I found them used from somebody that had grown out of them, and borrowed my in-laws' car, went and picked them up, and I put in a touchscreen DVD player that I got off, I think it was Facebook or Craig. It might have been Craigslist at the time. I bought it off of Craigslist for like $40, $50, put it inside of the car, and I couldn't get the screen to work. So by trial and error, like you were talking about critical thinking, I'm like, it can't be that hard. Going through everything, switching wires, changing it, it always powered on, but I couldn't figure out why the TV screen wouldn't come on. And I said, you know what? These are designed where they have it immobilized unless you have your parking brake on. So when you're dealing with other stuff like that, you're like, well, wait a minute, there's got to be a wire for parking brake. So I looked in the back on the schematic of the CD player, and it was this blue wire. The whole time I'm thinking it's for an antenna, and it's the parking brake. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now what I did was I grounded the parking brake with the black wire, and boom, TV came on just like that. So learning situation for me, also learning thing for them, because I was frustrated. I ain't gonna lie to you.
But that's dope, man.
Yeah,
And talk about, you got the apparel, which I was looking at earlier, which is cool.
yeah,
Um, the like the shirt royalty,
yeah.
the logo with your kids on it, that's pretty fire. Um, talk about the passion of customizing kids' cars. Where did that come from?
So we've always wanted to have, regardless of our financial situation or anything else that we go through, we've always wanted to create a custom lifestyle for our children, right? So it started with the vehicles was one thing, but that was more like a STEM related thing, just to kind of get them excited about education and schooling. They weren't really reading like that. We were reading to them at the time, and then from then, my wife and I sat down and we're like, you know what, we should make it like it's a little kids motorcycle club, right? And then we'll just buy other vehicles. We got enough, nieces and nephews and godchildren and cousins that we can get a couple of the denim jackets, you know what I mean? Get them for the low. And then we'll just cut them up and we'll make them like little custom jackets and let the kids decorate them in some cases. Ask them, what quote they want to put on it, or if they want their names on it, or what type of image or any of that stuff. And then we use that. And my wife created what's called Shawnee Customs. So she turned around and she made custom jackets for each one of the kids. And this is some of the stuff that she puts on it. We're big on faith and family. And so some of the things you'll see, there will be like scriptures on it. Others of them will have different events that we've been to. Our kids have been blessed to be able to sponsor children that they've never even met. So in many of these cases, we talk about things that we go to, not actually the outcome of different things we're doing, that because we don't want that to be bragging rights or anything like that. We want the activity to be done, the kids to be blessed, and then, or the families to be blessed, and go from there. And then we progress from there into the actual clothing line. So coming up with the royalty stuff and some of the other things that you had shared from the website, those are all pieces that were an offshoot of that allowed them to be able to wear their own gear and say, this is mine. You want it, just go onto my website, you can order it. And so it's an aspect for them to be able to get revenue back, but on the same token, it doesn't push them into a negative space.
And I think that's amazing because you're creating this foundation of personal responsibility, because as they get older, you want to set them up for the best um, situation to succeed. Because a lot of
100%.
kids may not have that. I want that parent or parents
Yeah.
that don't set that up for them. And so I'm just amazed at what you're doing. Um, but how do you uh, how can I say it? How do because the terminology I use is work life balance. So how do
Yeah.
you balance work and life?
Man. Ugh. That gets very dicey from time to time. So I want to say that as a man, you have to be very flexible, right? Because there's a responsibility you have as far as provision, but that doesn't necessarily just mean financial. So sometimes you got to sit down and like I started teaching my kids how to play chess a while ago, and that's one of the tools that I utilize. You have to look at what they're interested in, what excites them. Right now my oldest son is into Pokemon, right? I never would have thought when I was a kid and Pokemon cards first came out that it would have been like, hey, yo, this is going to be here in 20 some odd years, but here it is. And so now it's bonding with them and talking to him about, I used to have all of these and showing him, what happened to them and some of the other challenges there. But he, it's that work-life balance aspect is something that kind of it's a moving target, right? There's never one formula that just works every day of the week. And so, as an example, there's some weeks where I have to travel for my regular job. And right, what I'll do when I come back is I try to make up for that. We'll go and we'll do some family related things. Like maybe we'll go, I'll take them to the arcade or to one of the trampoline places, or we'll go drive go-karts or something like that. And that's one of the things that we do to balance. But daily, regardless of what it is that I'm doing, I always go and I check in on them. I say, hey, how was school? What's going on? Everything's good. You have anything you want to talk with daddy about, anything that's concerning you, what did you get from school today? All of those types of things. Did you have any problems? Are you having any trouble with homework? All of these types of things. And then my wife and I, we kind of juggle those hats. Since she's home predominantly with the kids when I'm on the road, then she makes sure that they're taken care of, that their homework is done, all of those pieces. And when I come back, I try to make sure if there's anything needs to be done aside from my normal fatherhood duties and husband duties, that stuff is done, is prepared just in case I got to travel again. And so it's a moving target, man, from week to week. If you call me on a Tuesday, on a Friday, it could be a very different story. Like, oh, I'm in transit, I'm on my way, I got to go pick up these pizzas, I got to go grab this movie. We finna sit down and have family time, right? But always, always, always make sure that weekly that you have time set aside where you're able to kick it with your family and with your children. And I think that's it's one of the more strategic things that we do as fathers and as parents, but the impact of that over their lifetime is much, 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 much more appreciated.
And I agree with that too, because the last guest that I had on, I brought up the phrase model the behavior.
Yeah,
Um, and I think as parents, that's critical because it's not what you say, it's what you actually do that
100%.
makes an impression on a child's life.
Yeah. And you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, and you said as modeling, you have to make sure that not only are you modeling, but you're pushing them to actively practice that thing. So like I didn't choose these clothes for no reason, right? These are all things that I make sure when my children have things that are in their closet, they're brands that have representation, that look like them, that support them. When we go and when we do different videos, you'll see like shout out to a couple of the brands we support down in Tulsa that are really, really phenomenal, that are from Black Wall Street, N Crowd Clothing, Greenwood Ave. These are just two of like our favorite brands that we work with down there. We have DINAN, which is up here in Philadelphia. They're in Norristown actually, and all of our children actually model for them, so they're on their website as well. So all of these pieces and these different avenues for brands that actually not only allow our kids to be a part of them, but also support our kids when they post. And that's important to me because I can go to Nike, I can go to Under Armour, I got a friend that owns a brand called Major Prep. He does some amazing things. Has a lot of children that model for him. I support his brand as well. All of those pieces are things that if I don't put them in place for them to practice and actively choose so they have this representation, when they pick up that rich kid's hoodie from N Crowd, I want them to have that image branded that they are, you're wealthy. It's not just about money. It's not just always about that. There's a lot of relationships you have that most average people your age have no idea about.
Yeah.
This is the part you need to focus on. And so that, and then all of the other brands, as I said, Greenwood Ave, they know about Black Wall Street, they know the history behind that. They read the books, they met with some of the authors from that, some of the historians. They actively walk the streets with some of their custom sneakers. So I got friends that, I put these ones up there. These are Jordan 13 altitudes we had done for my youngest son when we went last year. And each one of our kids have custom Jordans that we've had done And so all of these pieces we're putting resources behind them as individuals, not just companies.
And it's amazing what you're doing, man. You got your hands on so many things. I don't know how you take a moment to rest, and take care of yourself personally, because man, people talk about me, but you do you're on just a whole new, like, taking over the world, like Pinky in the Brain. Like, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna take over the world.
Listen, we just do our part, man. It's you're blessed to have the influence that you have. I'm blessed to have the influence I have. We all are given the same amount of time every day. It's how we spend it. I never like to think that anybody's doing more or less than what I'm doing. I like to think that whatever each one of us is doing is making an impact. Now, if that impact is something that history is able to blot out, that's different. But the goal is that in each one of these strategic steps that we're doing, on your side, on my side, we're trying to make an indelible impact. Something that history can't say, oh, Alfred came through, Ishmael came through, but they didn't really do much. They just lived and died. That little dash that's in between them numbers ain't really add up to much.
No, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, man. Man, this has been a dope conversation. What's next, man? What's coming out in the future? What's the next thing?
So my wife and I are working on our first book together. Actually, our first did you have a book? Our first book, period. On both of our sides, but together, around the home ownership journey and talking about the challenges and navigating that, and all the way through situations with contractors, taking money and walking off the job and work not being completed, and then navigating the hurdles dealing with that. And then we also my father-in-law actually just just published his first book. So that's one of the pieces that both of us have started reading. That's on spiritual maturity, on sonship, and understanding the importance that, and biblically speaking, as well as in the several other religions, there's a relationship with a father and son that's always the theme throughout any of the context that you read, and that's something that's extremely important, that in all of our lives we have a very thorough grounding and foundation in. And so that's going to be one of the next books that we're actually reading. We're working on trying to get some of our artifacts as well separately from that into either one into museum, or two to be able to have on display in some of the historic African American locations. So we got just at least the top three that's going on, right? 3, 4 things that's going on right now. And then aside from that, man, that our youngest child, our oldest child, is actually getting ready to publish her first book. So she has a book that she actually wrote and illustrated. She's big on graphic arts. So we're pushing all of the funding, all of the different pieces into it that we can. My wife's sister actually graduated with a degree in graphic arts, and so she's been helping to teach my daughter as well on the software side. All of these pieces, man, it's a constant legacy focus. So these are all pieces that they're intertwined in different ways, but they're all being funded and or provided by my wife and myself right now. So these are all pieces that we're working on probably over the next year.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about that. And my last question to you, give me your proud dad moment, because I know you got multiple moments with your kids.
So you think when you say that, you mean like with all three of them, or you just mean in general?
All three of them.
I think the proudest moment we had was when we presented, and there was a concept for a cartoon that we were working on that we were funding. And then due to some of the stuff around the house process, it ended up having to be tabled because I was paying for 2 separate locations. And I couldn't do 3 things not at that financial scale. It was a lot. But when I saw them watch a cartoon that was the beginning of what is going to be theirs, that has them actually in it, that we wrote the storyline to, that we were working with artists that are, one of them happens to work for Disney now and has a few patents, and working through that process. And aside from that, and the artists we were able to connect with, and being able to see them actually look at the artwork of some of these amazing folks like Demar. Demar's work, man. Demar was one of the artists that was a part of this project, and the impact of being able to sit, this we presented it to them for Christmas. I think this was last year, the year before last. We presented it to them for Christmas, and watching them be able to see a storyline that has them as characters, right? Talking about the different things that they're doing, the superpowers, as it were, how their superpowers were activated, and just seeing like the aha like smile on each one of their faces. That was probably one of the, as a parent, that was probably one of the proudest moments with them together versus just them individually that I've ever had the experience of. And there's other ones individually, but I think as a parent, we all want to make sure that what we're doing is something that ignites our children, right? It's not something that we're forcing them to do because we feel like it's best for them, and it doesn't really resonate with them because you're only gonna be able to hold them down for but so long, right? When you see something that really ignites them, that makes them light up, that shows them not only about being a child, but also about how to be able to create something that represent yourself. Those are the moments that we got to seize, and those are the more important things than other things that we can potentially praise and give glory to.
Definitely, man. And this has been a glorious conversation with you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. How can people find you?
This is fun. I'm set up the bat signal. I'm in the sky. I'm always looking for it. But yeah, if you want to check me out, I manage mainly the kids IG page. So that's the LAS custom style. That's L is in Lima, A is in Apple, S is in Sean, custom style, and that's on IG. And then also on my wife's platform, which is Shawnee Types Lifestyles. We have a podcast, not a podcast. It's a blog where we're called Life with the Sloans. So if y'all want to check us out, talking about some of the things of navigating marriage and the fun conversations that we have over the years and different things we learn with our kids, in more of an adult format where we have different guests that come on and talk to different folks. Feel free to check us out on that. Other than that, I'm always available via email. My email is alfred.sloan2@yahoo.com. Y'all want to hit me up on there. I'm always looking for new emails, different groups that want to reach out. So holler at me through there. And definitely check out, Dad Isn't a Noun. Our podcast, our video is just one, but there's so many other content you have out there, man, that is phenomenal. So check out the links that you're going to put below. Also check out the other material that you put up there.
I appreciate that. But again, it's not about me. It's about you. But it's all love, man. Thank you. This has been dope. And we're out of here. Peace.
Peace.